So when we talk about Nigeria as a country, the reputation that we have, you hear some Westerners or some any part of the world, whenever they think Nigeria, they think the Nigerian prince. That is the Yahoo Yahoo 419ers, which is not so good for our reputation as a country. Now the United States of America has a new president. A lot of Nigerians are wondering that what would be the fate of Africa, even Nigerians living abroad. So let us go on this quick break, and when we come back, we'll begin discussion on the topic of how we could mend our relationship with other countries in the world. To stay with us. This is Firecrackers. You've missed quite a lot, but don't worry, you can catch up with us on our Facebook page. We stream live on Facebook. And now to the topic we have at hand, that's mending Nigeria's reputation with other countries around the world. So, like I said earlier, the reputation that Nigeria has is not so pleasant, and we know that one of the very difficult thing to fix is stereotypes. When one is already put in a box of, if it's a good box, that's fine, but if it is in a box that is labeled as bad, that's not something we want for ourselves. So let us start looking at ways, how do we mend this reputation crisis, even if we could call it that, that we Nigerians are facing when it comes to our relationship with other Western worlds?
So that's, I'm sure, what you're saying. What is the perception crisis?
Yes.
Now, so some people say that majority of Nigerians are associated with crime and fraud, and that's become the representation of the country across the world. But in all sincerity, I beg to differ. Some of those things are just noise in social media and all those places. They make it into films and all, it's entertainment. In reality, the reputation of Nigerians globally is actually quite decent. Right, we are some of the best educated people in America, right? As a particular country, we are one of the highest in Europe, also in terms of education and being in the right of it. So I think we should be careful not to make a narrative a truism, because it just it feeds into our perception, like, oh, everybody is doing some kind of advanced fee fraud. Nigeria as a country has some very strong ties with practically every other sovereign nation in the world. We established diplomatic relations with a lot of them from way back, like some as early as 1958 or something, and then we had a bunch once we got independence. So and our foreign policy is pretty clear in terms of what we can do and how we relate to all the different countries that we have bipartisan relations with. I think the challenge for any administration, it comes down to National Orientation Agency and the Ministry of Communication. And what do I mean by that? First, we need to change our own orientation of how we see ourselves, because once we establish it as a truism and we say, oh, all Nigerians are fraudsters, or Nigerians from a particular region are fraudsters, we are making a lie the truth. And if you are the one selling the lie about yourself, if people say that, oh, you don't steal chicken, and then you come out and you keep saying, oh, I have a weakness for chicken, I think I take a lot of chicken, I think I might just take your chicken, you cement the idea, even though it's not something you do, because of constant repetition. So I think that the National Orientation Agency needs to step in on that and do an internal audit of our perception, right, as Nigerians in terms of nationhood. And the Ministry of Communication should come out and aggressively get people to understand some of these things. Take over the social media space, put it in curriculum, so that what you're talking about in terms of what Nigeria represents is what you put in the mind of each and every Nigerian, and that's the value we would take anywhere. If you go to the UK, for example, you find a lot of Nigerian languages being spoken on the street, different ethnicities, but in all of that, we're still recognized as like the dominant African nation globally. Nigeria is one of the few. A lot of times in representation, they would represent Africa as a whole, and Nigeria as almost separate, like it's Nigeria and then there's Africa. So those are the kind of things that the Ministry of Communication, the rest of them can actually, National Orientation Agency can put some work into and help people to also get a sense of pride of nationhood, right, which you can then project to change some of these other narratives that are not so good.
Okay, but if you are doing so good, how come, especially when it comes to visa, getting visa, it is so problematic for us? Our passports, I want to be very gentle with the terms I use, but the number of countries that we can go to visa-free is so limited compared to other countries around the world. So does it not mean that, okay, there is actually something wrong about the perception of Nigeria as a country?
Okay, so what you said is the manifestation of a lot of issues. Number one, Nigeria's interest in ECOWAS, right, allowed for a lot of cross-border migrations. And because of our loose structure, identity structure, knowing who you are and who is Nigeria, almost anyone, Ghanaian, Togolese could walk into Nigeria, pick up a passport, call himself a Nigerian, then he goes outside, does something nasty. I mean, what you see, the guy may not be able to speak Yoruba or Igbo or Efik or anything, but on his passport you see Oluwole, or you see Namdi, you see Shitu, and then the perception is this is a Nigerian, because that's all the facts you have at hand, but the person might not be a Nigerian. And that's one of the issues that we have in terms of poor identity structures. So we need to put that first in perspective. It's not all, Nigerians. Secondly, we also need to realize that there will be lawbreakers, right? And each country has the right to protect itself. When people talk about obtaining visas to other countries and how difficult it is, the question to ask is, do you know how difficult it is to also get a visa to Nigeria? It is also difficult. We also have some stringent, protocols in terms of getting a Nigerian visa. So it's not like it's something that is targeted. A lot of that is just media hype, right? Because if they increase fees and then they ban people, some elements have created, look, we don't know how to solve this problem, so for now we need to restrict the inflow. And I think the countries, are entitled to it. But we have a sense of entitlement, right? And okay, so you're applying for like a UK or US visa, and they say these are the requirements. Then you go and falsify this document, and you falsify that document. The next time person B comes along, so person A does that, person B comes along, automatically they're on the defensive. And it's the desperation that we all preach. Like recent stuff to talk about Jack Ma a lot. I grew up in the 80s. If you remember when you can win, she had a song then, Andrew, don't jet out, something like that. Emigration is not a big deal, but we use it to stigmatize ourselves, and then we give credence to some of these false narratives. I'm not saying there aren't bad Nigerians, but every country also have crops of bad people. Why are we fond of celebrating the bad and promoting the bad, right, rather than the good? Because what you sell, there's a proverb that says if you sell your brother, whoever is buying is not going to trust you. And that's the kind of situation that we've put ourselves, in. Some people use it as like a form of ethnic war. Oh, it's people from this region that does this, people, but not forgetting that you're a Nigerian. Nobody outside Nigeria thinks of you as Igbo, Hausa, Ibibio, Yoruba. You're a Nigerian, right? So that's why I said a lot of work has to go in from, the NOA, right, in terms of cradle to, secondary and all the rest. And then communication has to be key. There has to be a mass reorientation of the mind. Otherwise, we'll keep on going in circles. We'll keep on promoting negative stereotypes. And then the few of us, who are bad, will be given the mandate to represent the rest of us who are really not into those kind of rackets.
Yeah, because so the interesting thing is they say good news spread fast, but bad news spreads like wildfire. I think that is part of the things that might also be playing out here. If you say someone is good, people, okay, show it to me that you're good. They are looking for that opportunity for you to show to them that you are good. But if someone says that this person is bad, there's always this guard that comes up immediately, like, I don't even want a trial for you to prove to me that you are bad. Thank you, and just go your way.
There are some mental bias that people have, that limits your ability to make better decisions. So in the case, you let me just use that hypothetical situation. So you met, like, let's say you met 10 people, and out of 10 people, 9 of them were decent human beings. One person happens to be a horrible human being. It is objectively not fair to say this one person represents all 10 people. It's objectively not fair. You just want to push a negative, narrative about the matter. So yes, there will be. It's across the world. If you hear about crime rates in places in the world, you'll be like you're very safe in Nigeria. But we like to promote, all those negative stuff. There was a time we had herdsmen. Almost every crime in the country seemed to have been committed by herdsmen because it was targeted at a particular ethnicity, and they didn't like whoever was in government at the time who belonged to that ethnicity. So it became a big issue, herdsmen. In a short while after that, it was spread when the law enforcement guys started arresting people, and then they find out, oh, this guy lives in this neighborhood. He's not some Fulani guy. This guy is from here. They realized the criminals were just being criminals, but the media hype around it, the media promoted the old herdsman narrative. Now we don't hear it so much because really, yes, there will be pockets of issues, but it is not as pervasive as being. So now, if you take that information and then you put it in a global space and everybody's talking and saying stuff, what do you expect the world to think about you? Or if you think about during the last election and post-election, oh, the president is a drug dealer, he did this, and he couldn't provide any fact, then you now say that you have messed up your image. And you expect someone else to just embrace, the mess up that it doesn't add up. We have it all, reversed, because it's really about a sense of nationhood, and we're not working enough to promote it. Even the administrations are at fault. When you say there's a lot of noise and they give you negative stereotypes, so what are you going to do? You create a counter noise. Either you even it out or you suppress it. And that's the way you can push. China did a couple of policies over the years that seem to be locking them in, right? But really what it gave them is a sense of China is for China. And then they built China. America, before it expanded and all this, it was America for America. In fact, one of the things that Trump is preaching is America for America. That's how you build, because you are working towards something, and it's not just you, it's your nation. But if you try to tear it down every time because your candidate is not the president, they didn't give your brother this contract and you suspect it's because he's a Christian, and you go on social media and you spread it and you make it look like it's not an objective truth, it is your truth, and then you make it look like, oh, this is reality. You're creating problems for everyone, and like I said, it still comes back to the responsibility of the administration. You need to tackle this. Whatever you do, I remember there was a time that Obasanjo, former President Obasanjo, he commissioned Second Niger Bridge, and it seemed like almost everybody else after him also commissioned Second Niger, but nobody built it. What it was, it became a campaign tool over the years. Oh, I'm going to do this, we're going to build and complete it. Okay, so now President Muhammadu Buhari came in, he did it, something we've all been talking about for years, and then some group of people will just, oh, you won't even know that project, that very important project has been completed. So that's an internal issue we have, and that's what we project outside. That perception, it's not as if some people won't be criminals. That's normal. The American criminals, British criminals, it's normal. But to make it seem like this is who everybody is a misrepresentation. And if you're making more noise stereotyping your country as bad, don't be surprised when you are profiled in that general way. It's not so much what the government can do to control that. You have your freedom of expression. It's just that your thinking is just not very right for nationhood and nation building. But you can say anything, and most people choose to say the wrong thing, which it becomes quite a big problem for us.
Yeah, indeed it is, because even if we are to look within ourselves as Nigeria, there are stereotypes about each tribe. One person will say that, no, you can't trust the Yoruba man, Igbos are usually like this, Hausa are usually like this. So if that is what is common among us, then how do we even go about if you're not breaking the stereotype that we have about each other, then how do we go about breaking the stereotype that they have about us from the outside?
So I think it's there's a Yoruba proverb, "Ile Latin already," right? So we need to be very intentional about fixing, we're fixing our orientation in the country before we can, project. If Americans, like our foreign relations with every country that we are, is good. Even countries that people would assume that we have issues with, it's good. We have issues. We don't have issues as a country with anybody. However, we have a small problem in the country, and then your Nigerians are asking those guys to come and take over. They're saying they're killing us. I mean, we are undermining ourselves.
Or flying their flags.
We can't control how they will respond, but we can control how we act. And we have not been acting well. We cannot do propaganda for them about Nigeria when even Nigerians don't believe the propaganda. Several times over the decade, you see on CNN, a country, Qatar, Abu Dhabi. Imagine if they do all that and then some of their citizens say, no, it's a lie, come and see this shanty, this person is suffering. I mean, who would want to go there as a tourist destination? You can't be sabotaging yourself and then expecting to make progress. It's just counterintuitive.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the problem boils down now to patriotism about how we feel about the country and how we feel about ourselves as citizens of it, or the citizen of this country, and how we promote the image to being loyal to our country.
If we project good things about us, there's a role for administrators. Bring policies, communicate, create the background, but there's a responsibility of citizens. It undermines whatever anyone is doing if you're constantly badgering your country. If the best news you hear about your country is that someone said your country is a shithole and you are so excited about it and talking about it. In Yoruba they say, "Omo luma fowosi jule," a bastard that would disrespect when he's pointing, because it has no value to him. We need to debastardize, as it were, our minds as a country, because either we like it or not. Aside from inside here, nobody outside sees us as anything other than Nigerians.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that. That has been very interesting, and definitely a fresh perspective on how we should view ourselves as Nigerians, so that we could probably control how other people around the world sees us too. Thank you so much for being with us today on Firecrackers. All right, that's Femi Onakare, a socio-economic analyst, and this is where we'll be drawing the curtains today on this episode of Firecrackers. We thank you so much for staying with us today.